Oh hi. Argentina, the second. After Brazil. Across the territory in the third. After Brazil and Colombia. On the population, the state of South America consisting of 24 administrative units minus 23 provinces and the federal capital district Buenos Aires. Spanish-speaking country, first in area in the world. The capital, Buenos Aires. Member of the Union. 1945. Ode. 1948. Odo. 1995. The name of the country, Argentina, is derivative of a Latin word. Argentum. Silver. Which in turn comes from Greek. Earlier. What meant white shining. The Greek adjective meaning silvery.
The name arose after Sebastian Cabot picked up one Diaz de Solís left by an expedition on the bank of Francisco del Puerto, who told Cabot of the White King and Silver Mountains is located to the north from La Plata. Cabot believed a legend and, having left the initial plan for a navigation research on the way to the Moluccas, found Magellan Elcano's expedition moved off in searches of silver.
But information was false. In the basin of La Plata there are no deposits of precious metals. Rather, in a legend it was told about the empire of Inca. But hearing about silver became the reason for which the country was called Argentina.
The first use of the name Argentina can be referred to the poem of 1602, Argentina and Conquest of Rio de la Plata.
La Argentina y Conquista del Rio de la Plata. Martin del Barco Centenera. Though this name of the region was widely used by the 18th century, in 1776 the country was officially called the Vice Kingdom of Rio de la Plata. The independent government formed after the May Revolution of 1810 replaced the name, Vice Kingdom, with the integrated provinces.
The name Argentina became well known after his use in the first anthem of Argentina of 1813, in which there were many mentions of the continuing War of Independence of Argentina.
For the first time officially the name the Argentine Republic was recorded in the Constitution of 1826.
After return to the structure of Confederation of the province Buenos Aires in 1859, the name of the country was changed on the Argentina nation.
The name the Argentine Republic was returned after adoption of law of October 8, 1860 and remains so far. Argentina is included into 10 the largest countries in the world.
She occupies a southeast part of the continent of South America and east part of the archipelago of Tierra del Fuego.
Borders in the west on Chile, on Bolivia and Paraguay, in the northeast in the north, on Brazil and Uruguay. In the east it is washed by waters of the Atlantic Ocean, in the south Drake Strait. Costa Catape little, only estuary of La Plata crashes into the land on 320 kilometers. The territory of Argentina is extended in the meridional direction. Its greatest extent from the north on the south is 3,200 kilometers. Big extent of sea borders played an important role in development of external economic relations of Argentina. The area is 2.8 million km. Without Falkland or Malvinsky, the islands challenged by Argentina and Great Britain.
It is only a little larger than Kazakhstan and takes the 8th place in the world on the area.
The nature of Argentina is various owing to big extent from the north on the south and differences in air relief. In structure surfaces the country can be divided approximately on 63 elbow into two parts. Flat, the north and the east, and ennobled, the south and the west.
Along all western border of Argentina there past the Andes, the largest massif of the Western Hemisphere, developed generally during the Alpine mountain building.
They differ in complexity and a variety of a geological structure. In the northwest, between northern border of the country and 28 at the height of 4000 m lies the extensive closed volcanic Pune Plateau. The mountains framing Pune from the east rise up to 6500 m. They are crowned by snow tops. To the south of Anda are sharply narrowed. The greatest height is reached by them in the central part, between 32 and 37 so, where the alpine pointed relief forms prevail. Here the highest tops of South America topped with powerful snow caps rise. Aconcagua, 6962 m. Tupungato, Mercedario. The combination of various forms of air relief to various color scale of slopes and a snow dress of mountains creates special beauty of mountain landscapes of the Andes. In the north, from northern border to 29 and to the Parana River in the east is spread the plain of Gran Chaco, 2550 m, filled with detrital material and alluvial deposits.
Entre Rios of Parana and Uruguay is the generally flat area put by the red sandstones and margalium blocked by a thick layer clay and alluvia and loess.
The northern part of the area represents the lava plateau, which is a part of lava plateau of Brazil. The central part of Entre Rios, the flat boggy lowland. And the south, the Skalmliny plain crossed by sandstone ridges.
Thanks to a variety of air relief and features of a geological structure, Argentina has rich mineral resources for industry development.
But there are almost no global deposits, as in other countries of Latin America. Here, in the western areas there are ore minerals. The country is allocated with reserves of uranium, manganese, copper ores, beryllium. There is zinc lead, tungsten and iron ores. On reserves of uranium ores, Argentina is included into 10 the leading countries of the world. From fuel and energy resources, natural gas and oil have the greatest value. The main fields are dated for sedimentary rocks in deflections of the Patagonian platform and to intermountain deflections of the Andes. In provinces Neuquén, Mendoza, Salta, and on Tierra del Fuego. Reliable reserves of natural gas of Argentina are estimated at 600 billion cubic meters. His production increased, especially with discovery of the field in the province Neuquén. In Patagonia there are small reserves of brown coals. Argentina is allocated with stocks of non-metallic minerals, including ore gray. Deposits of various construction raw materials are quite numerous. Marble, granite, etc.
At the same time, the geological study of the territory in general is low.
But one of the main problems of development of industries of Argentina consists not so much in lack of separate types of raw materials, though the shortage of the coking coals, potash salts, etc. How many in their extremely adverse placement,
Mainly in the suburban, low-made habitable areas is felt.
So, for example, in Patagonia, 30% of the territory of the country, the combination of sources of mineral raw materials and fuel, water and forest resources is noted.
Half of products of the mining industry is the share of this area already now. However, only 3% of the population of the country live in this area.
Natural basis of economic development were, first of all, rich land resources of Argentina. In structure of land fund, agricultural grounds occupy about 70%. But pastures prevail. The considerable part of the territory of Pampas is opened. The favorable combination of agroclimatic resources defines specialization of the country in the international division of labor on grain farm and livestock production on natural pastures. Among water resources of Argentina, the leading role belongs to the rivers. The river network is more better developed in the northeast, where two rivers abounding in water merge in the general mouth of La Plata. Parana, the second, after Amazon, on length and the area of the pool, the river of South America. The largest rivers of Argentina have rain type of food. The main economic hydroenergy potential belongs to the rivers of Patagonia, originating in mountains, and also to the rivers of the basin of Parana and Uruguay. But only a small part of this potential is used. Vegetation of Argentina differs in big variety. From tropical forests to semi-deserts in Patagonia and Pune. In northern Entre Rios, subtropical forests with various specific structure grow. Here meat possessing valuable wood and araucaria. To the south, shrubby vegetation prevails. Boggy spaces are covered with canes, reeds, water lilies, and sublime and dry meadows with a rich grass cover. The rarefied woods from acacias, mimosas, and ostrich tree, on coast of the rivers, palm groves meet. Towards the south there are more open grassy sites, the southern part of the province of Entre Rios, the cereal prairie, and represents already transitional area to Pampas. Pampas in translation from language of Indians of Quechua means, deprived of wood vegetation. Boundless steppe spaces of damp pampas were covered with once long-term cereals, a feather grass, a perlovnik, a wild millet, and motley colorful raznatravi.
However, here remained to natural vegetation a little. The considerable part of the territory is opened, and the grassy cover which was once covering it, forming a natural food supply for livestock production as a result of a long pasture of the cattle, was littered with weeds and lost the original state.
Carafilni vegetation, undersized trees, prickly bushes, rigid herbs is characteristic of dry pampas. Similar vegetation is widespread also in the Troti West, in intermountain pools. Their bunches of rigid cereals and carafilni bushes alternate with cactuses. The woods in Argentina engage 12% of land fund.
Coniferous forests of Entre Rios and the damp Andes, and also the woods in Chaco, are of the greatest value. Their operation is complicated by the fact that they are located in the remote areas, therefore attempts of artificial afforestations in the made most habitable area, pampas are made. Forest resources of Chaco, but here as a result of long operation are most mastered, the question of their serious protection and restoration is particularly acute.
National flower of Argentina is Erythrina a crest. The fauna of Argentina though isn't so rich and various as it in other countries of Latin America, but has many endemic types. Almost all these animals
live in the Andes and their foothills and also in the sparsely populated area of Patagonia.
In Pune the relic point bear meets. On open semi-desertic spaces of Patagonia, and the puma is widespread in Chaco savannas. In the Andes still meet the vicuna possessing soft wool and chinchilla. Gentle silvery fur. However, both those and others underwent almost full destruction. It is a lot of rodents, battleships. In Chaco, Entre Rios, Patagonia nutrias, otters are widespread. Waterfowl live in swamps and lakes everywhere, many of which are allocated with the bright coloring. On coast of reservoirs it is possible to see a flamingo, a heron. In forests hummingbirds, among whom there are also endemic types, for example, the so-called flitting emerald in the Patagonian Andes meet.
The stove setter living in Argentina became in 1928 one of national symbols of the country.
Valdez Peninsula, one of the centers of seasonal migration of animals. From June to December the southern smooth whales, from September to March-April, Magellanic penguins and killer whales, from December to March, gray dolphins come here. All the year round here it is possible to meet motley dolphins, sea elephants, sea lions, Patagonian mar, ostriches, tunants, gray foxes and battleships. Argentina is located in 3 climatic zones: tropical, subtropical and moderate. Summer in the south of the country rather cold. Average temperatures even of the warmest month, January, of +15 C. A heat pole in Argentina, the tropical Gran Chaco area in the north. In the summer air gets warm up to +30, +40 C there, and in the winter average temperatures reach +17, +20 C. The annual amount of precipitation decreases on plains from the east on the west from 1400, 1600 to 100, 300, it increases in mountains again. Most of all rainfall receives east slopes of the southern Andes, up to 2000, and in places even to 5000 May a year. And from flat areas, Entre Rios in the northeast of Argentina, up to 1600 May a year. Climate of the capital of Argentina, subtropical damp. As Buenos Aires is located in the southern hemisphere, the summer lasts from December to February there, and winter, from June to August. The winter is soft, with long rains, occasionally there are weak frosts. The summer very stuffy and long, with its characteristic hot weather and plentiful rainfall. Average air temperature in July is +10 degrees, and in January +24. The amount of precipitation in the territory of the city makes 987 May a year. The capital is in a northeast part of Argentina in a subtropical natural belt with subtropical monsoonal climate. The territory of modern Argentina was populated no later than 10 millennium BB with tribes of hunters and collectors. About the second half of 1 millennium BB, the population of mountain plains passed in agriculture and livestock production. In the 1470s, the territory of present Argentina began to colonize Inca. At the beginning of the 16th century, various ethnic groups inhabited the territory of modern Argentina. Tuelche. In modern Patagonia. Rihuelches, Pampas, Matacos. In the areas of Chaco, Salta and Tucumán. Huaycas, Hurts, Diaquitas, Mapuche. In Neuquén, Rio Negro, Chubut, La Pampas and Buenos Aires. Guarani. To Entre Rios, Corrientes and Misiones, etc.
The number of Indians in the territory of modern Argentina on the eve of appearance there of Europeans reached 300,000 man.
In 1535, Pedro de Mendoza, being in the head of the expedition which had a large number of horses and provisions, based a fort of Santa Maria del Buen to Aire, the capital of modern Argentina. In 1776, the Vice-Kingdom of Rio de la Payment, which part Paraguay, Argentina, Uruguay and a part of Bolivia with the capital in the city of Buenos Aires, was formed. In 1805 and 1806, the British troops were beaten in their attempts to conquer Buenos Aires. The upper bourgeoisie headed revolutionary movement in 1810. As a result of a victory of this movement, the integrated provinces of Rio de la Payment were formed. On May 25, 1810, the municipal council declared dissolution of the Vice-Kingdom and introduction of government of the King Fernando VII. In March 1816, representatives of several provinces gathered in Tucumán. On July 9, independence of Spain and creation of the integrated provinces of South America was declared. Is later than the integrated provinces of Rio de la Payment. Though at the head of the new state there was the supreme governor, the Congress couldn't come to the agreement on a government form. Many of delegates, in particular delegates of the city and the province Buenos Aires, were supporters of constitutional monarchy.
Its specified position, which then was changed in favor of the centralized republican system, faced opposition in the person of delegates of other provinces which defended the federal system of state system.
The discussion between two fractions led to Civil War of 1819. The General José D. Street Martin headed army which won a victory over Spaniards. Street Martin brought the significant contribution to business of fight for independence of Argentina, Chile and Peru. Peace was restored in 1820. Nevertheless, the main issue, namely creation of a stable form of government, was unresolved.
Within the next decade, the integrated provinces endured a condition of anarchy which was promoted by war with Brazil of 1825-1827.
Brazil got beaten in the conflict concerning territorial claims for Uruguay. As a result of the conflict, Uruguay became the independent state. In 1833, Great Britain occupied the Falkland Islands.
The dictatorship of Rosas was overthrown in 1852 by a group under the leadership of the General Justo Urquiz, who was a governor Entre Rios earlier.
Urquiz's victory was reached by means of troops of Uruguay and Brazil. In 1853, the Constitution of Argentina was adopted, and Urquiz became the first president of the Republic Argentina. The province Buenos Aires didn't join the constitution and in 1854 declared independence. The mutual hostility of two states led in 1859 to a war. The Argentine Republic quickly won a victory, and in October of the same year the province Buenos Aires joined the constitution. But soon it became the center of the new mutiny directed against the federal government, which burst in 1861.
Under command of the General Bartolome Mitre, rebels inflicted defeat in September of the same year over National Army.
On November 5, the President of the Republic declared the resignation. In May of the next year, Mitre was elected by the Congress to the president's post, and Buenos Aires became the capital of Argentina. The next decade was marked by gaining Los Pampas, known now as the province of Rio Negro, during which the threat from natives was eliminated. This so-called War of the Desert, 1879-1880. Under the leadership of the General Julio Roca, opened a way to the extensive territories favorable for development of agriculture and livestock production. In 1880, Roca, the opponent of the eminence of Buenos Aires, was elected to the president's post. In the years which followed his victory, Buenos Aires was separated from the province and approved as the capital of Argentina and the federal district.
Within 50 years which followed after 1880, Argentina achieved considerable economic and social progress.
At the beginning of the 20th century, Argentina turned into one of the richest countries of the world. The popularity of Argentina increased with arrival in the country of millions of Europeans.
The social situation in Argentina remained stable up to 1930, when a military coup during which the President Hipólito Yrigoyen was overthrown burst.
In 1946, Perón was elected the President of Argentina. Perón and his spouse Evita,
directing implementation of social programs, enjoyed wide popularity among a people at large.
In 1952, Perón was elected the president again. Together with the popular and strong in spirit wife Eva, he undertook a rigid economic reform. The program paid bigger attention to the Argentina industrialization and self-determination. It was approved by fractions of conservative nationalists and workers. Perón's attempts to secularizar the state led to the conflict with Catholic Church. Perón's regime was overthrown in 1955. After change of a number of the military and civil governments of Perón in 1973, I returned to the power, but I died in 1974. The post of the president was held by his third wife Isabel, who didn't have political experience, elected together with him the vice president. In the period of her board, revolutionaries of Marxist sense of the Montoneros started terror, which was used as an occasion by organizers of the military coup which happened in 1976. Then the army launched own dirty war against all someone military considered by blasting elements. Thousands of Argentinians were killed and announced by missing persons. In 1981, instead of the General Videla who stripped of power Isabel Perón, the post of the president was held by the General Roberto Viola. He less than in a year was replaced by the General Leopoldo Galtieri. In 1982, for overcoming an economic crisis, Galtieri gave the order of the Argentina army to land on the Falkland, Malvinsky Islands, which since 1833 were controlled by Great Britain. To surprise of the government of military, Great Britain sent the troops to the southern Atlantic, and in 3 months the Argentina contingent on islands capitulated. Islands returned to Great Britain.
Galtieri resigned, and soon in 1983 as a result of democratic elections Raúl Alfonsín, the candidate of the Radical Civil Union, came to the power.
In May 1989 Carlos Saul Menem, the head of Justicialistski Peronistski
Party, became the leader of the country, who came to the power in a democratic way. Since 1991, with active participation of the Minister of Economics Domingo Cavallo, programs of liberalization of economy and development of free trade were carried up.
As the President Menem achieved basic changes in the Argentina economy and also establishments of political stability. In 1995 Menem was re-elected as the President of Argentina. The Peronistski Party led by Menem also won a victory at congressional elections and received the majority in the Chamber of Deputies. Argentina left behind gloomy years of military dictatorship and passed to conditions of the developed democratic freedoms.
The same year, under pressure of opposition parties, the Minister of Economics Domingo Cavallo left the post.
It became the first call for telling fast total collapse of economic miracle.
In 2001, reforms of the Minister Cavallo and the President Menem led the country to a technical default.
Main reasons: unprecedented opening of economy, too sharp liberalization of the mode of foreign investments, deregulation of the markets. Too big dependence on foreign investments was as a result formed. The peso binding to dollar at course 1 first demanded big resources for maintenance, secondly, made economy less competitive in comparison with neighbors. Brazil. A big problem was also that the majority of investments and credits to the population, about 70%, was given in dollars. That strongly complicated a possibility of smooth devaluation of peso.
After a technical default, the lack of levers of administrative pressure upon banks led to the fact that it wasn't succeeded to limit peso sales volumes.
As a result, lack of funds for maintenance of converting of peso, could lead dollar to full devaluation of peso. The IMF refused to the country crediting and laid down rather severe conditions. One of the offered options, dollarization of economy, that is full refusal of national currency. There is an opinion whose that the IMF significantly aggravated crisis as the IMF actively insisted on reforms, and the government was to bring forcibly them into life because of dependence on loans.
As a result, the government converted all dollar savings of the population into peso at course 1.4.
Until the 3 times are cheaper than a course relevant at the time. Foreign banks were obliged to accept in payment of the dollar credits taken to a default, peso at old course 1. That led to cumulative losses of banks $10 billion. Unemployment reached critical point 24%. Crisis led to Massachusetts riots and riots. Argentina has diplomatic relations with the Russian Federation. Were established with Russia on October 22, 1885, were suspended after October 1917 and are renewed with the USSR in 1946. According to the Constitution of 1853, in the country there is a division of the authorities on executive, legislative and judicial both on national and on local levels. Argentina, the Federal Republic, divided into 23 provinces and 1 federal capital district. The head of state, the president elected for 4 years. Now the president of Argentina is Alberto Fernandez, who won presidential elections which took place on October 27, 2019 and entered a position on December 10 the same year. The Prime Minister of Argentina. The supreme legislative body is the National Congress, which consists of the Senate, 72 people, and the Chambers of Deputies, 257 people. The chairman of the Senate holds a post of the Vice President of the country. The chairman of the Senate and the Vice President is Amado Boudinao. Parliamentary elections are held each 2 years, a third of senators and a half of deputies is updated.
Now, according to the Declaration of 1853, Buenos Aires is the capital. The city became the official capital only in 1880 when he was separated from the province Buenos Aires in a separate administrative unit.
Political parties. The Front for a Victory, Lewoperonistski fraction of Ustozilistski Party, 49 senators, 105 deputies. The Civil Radical Union, Left Centrist, 7 senators, 29 deputies. The Republican Offer, Right Centrist, 4 senators, 43 deputies. United for a New Alternative, Right Centrist Peronistski, 4 senators, 41 deputies. The Civil Coalition, the Social and Liberal, 1 senator, 7 deputies. Progressionists, the Left Centrist Coalition, 6 deputies. Socialist Party, the Left, 3rd senator, 12 deputies. The South Project, the left-wing party of the director Fernando Solanas, 1 senator, 1 deputy. The Left Front of Workers, the coalition of Trotskyist parties, 7 deputies. Except them, there are even more than 20 legal parties. Some have insignificant representation in the Senate and the Chamber of Deputies. Argentina is a member of the Union, the MFOG, the UTO, the Group of 20, Mercosur, the former member of the Union of South American Nations.
March 11, 2009, the government of Argentina signed the intergovernmental agreement in the form of exchange of notes with the government of the Russian Federation on cancellation of a visa regime between 2 countries. The document was signed in Buenos Aires by the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the South American Republic Jorge Tayana in the presence of the Ambassador of the Russian Federation in Argentina Yuri Korchagin and sent to Moscow to signing by the Russian side. March 18, 2009, the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov in the presence of the Ambassador of Argentina Leopoldo Bravo also signed the document in Moscow.
Now the citizens of Russia visiting Argentina with the tourist purposes can be up to 90 days without visa. The similar mode is set for citizens of Argentina in Russia. The United States established diplomatic relations with Argentina in 1823, after finding of the last independence of Spain. A bilateral relationship between the countries is based on common interests, including peacekeeping and stability in the region, protection of human rights and development of commercial communications.
The government of Argentina supports the USA in the field of the national and international security by participation in the international peacekeeping operations and promotion of non-proliferation of weapons of Massachusetts destruction. The Argentina Armed Forces consist of Army, the fleet and aircraft.
They are under command of the President, who is a Commander-in-Chief and deals with their issues through the Ministry of Defense. The military service is voluntary. Military age from 18 to 24 years, there is no conscription. 20 largest cities of Argentina. Buenos Aires 3,050,728, Resistencia 377,564.
Cordoba 1,346,092, Santiago del Estero 327,974.
Rosario, Corrientes 328,689. Mendoza 885,434, Neuquén 327,534. San Miguel de Tucumán 789,504, Bahia Blanca 310,657.
La Plata 732,503, Posadas 279,961.
Mar del Plata 604,563, Parana 270,968.
Santa Fe 493,547, San Salvador de Jujuy 231,229. Salta 464,678, San Luis 162,011.
San Juan 453,229. Rio Corta 149,303. Argentina, the high-growth agrarian industrial state. Since the beginning of the 1990th years in the country, the policy of privatization and broader attraction of the foreign capital is actively pursued. The accession to Mercosur, the South American Common Market, considerably expanded domestic market of Argentina. The prevalence of manufacturing industry is characteristic of Argentina, and in her the heavy industry dominates.
However, traditional branches of easy and especially food industry take still important place and have export value. Nevertheless, because of carrying out rash reforms, the economic crisis in 2001 led to significant increase in social tension and a default.
The sum of a public debt at the time was $132 billion, that made a default the largest in the history. High territorial concentration is characteristic of placement of the industry. A considerable part of the industrial enterprises of the heavy industry is concentrated in lower reaches of Parana, in an industrial belt between Buenos Aires and Rosario. More than a half of industrial output is made in Big Buenos Aires. On oil production, the country takes the fourth place, after Venezuela, Ecuador and Brazil. In Latin America, production completely provides needs of the country. The state companies in Arsa IPFI, private briders plus petrol, and the state doesn't import oil. Argentina is included into 10 leading countries on uranium reserves. The country is known for the scientific developments in the field of nuclear power and the uranium industry. In that, Nucleoelectrica Argentina. Ferrous metallurgy of the country, the oldest on the continent, but develops quite slowly, with big underloading of capacities because of a lack of raw materials. The majority of raw materials should be imported.
From branches of non-ferrous metallurgy are developed
Production of lead, zinc, copper, aluminum on the basis of own and imported raw materials. The mechanical engineering takes the leading place at products cost in the heavy industry. The transport mechanical engineering. The plants in Argentina have Ford, Chrysler, Toyota, Peugeot, etc. Agricultural mechanical engineering, production of the equipment for the food industry, electrician. Plants Siemens are most developed. In transport mechanical engineering, the automotive industry. Buenos Aires, Cordoba is in the lead, the shipbuilding and ship repair. Buenos Aires, Ensenada aircraft industry. Fadia, Aero, Laviasa and production of helicopters are developed. Siqueira, Aerodreams. Cordoba, Buenos Aires.
Among the export industries, a specific place is held by meatpacking, the industry, traditional and specific to the country.
Argentina belongs to a number of the most considerable producers of meat, generally beef, and his exporters. From other branches of the food industry, export value have production of vegetable oils, in recent years, soy, and also the flour grinding, oil milling industries and winemaking. On domestic market, it is focused fruit and vegetable, canning, sugar industries, production of drinks.
Distinctive feature of agriculture of Argentina in comparison with other countries of Latin America is the fact that she not only completely provides herself with food, but also exports it.
At the same time, only 2% working or engaged in agriculture. Per capita, the country surpasses other countries of the region. One place. In consumption of food. The products of agriculture and livestock production yield over 50% of export revenues. On number of cattle, Argentina takes the 6th place in the world, on production of meat per capita the 5th, and on his consumption the 1st. Meat, national food of Argentinians.
In crop production, the main place is traditionally taken by grain, oil-bearing and tobacco crops of export value.
On gathering wheat and tobacco, Argentina, one of the leading countries of the world. According to the World Bank in 2012, the country took the 6th place in the world on export of wheat. 8.4 million tons. Besides, Argentina the most important exporter of eggs, milk, barley and tobacco. The average amount of compensation in Argentina as of September 2018 is peso $835.44. Since October 1, 2019, the minimum wage is made by peso $282.09 and 5 peso net after a deduction of 14% of income tax of $242.60. According to the World Bank in 2017, export of goods and services in Argentina made $71 billion. Table.
These tables allow to draw a conclusion that throughout the first half of the studied period, the ascending trend of economic growth proceeding from the second half of 2002 before the fourth quarter 2008 was created. It became result of a crisis response measure about refusal of dollar parity and introduction of free quotation of Argentine peso accepted in January 2002 and lasting annually. The evaluation of national currency changed price ratios in favor of local production, and the economic plan, including increase in the role of the state as supervisory authority of economy, was developed a bit later.
Nevertheless, the global financial crisis of 2008-2009 significantly slowed down growth rates of volume of export of goods and services. If in 2008 gain was 0.022%, then in connection with the crisis consequences which reached in 2009 it decreased to 0.018%.
However, post-crisis revival happened quickly enough. The reindustrialization process, which began in 2003, strictly was regulated by the state that allowed to reorient economy on development of the competitive agrosphere and the industry.
And in 2010-2011 average annual growth rates were more than 1.022%. That is the highest rate for the considered period.
Plus the export volume indicator in 2011, $97 billion respectively, became economic recovery period peak. The recession of 2012-2015, which followed it substantially, is caused by falling of rates of economic development in Brazil, the main trade and economic partner of Argentina.
Appointment of the new president of Argentina Mauricio Macri in 2015 resumed the suspended process of expansion of export of goods and services. His politician consists in direct rapprochement with the USA. He supports development and strengthening of trade and economic relations and also integration with the Pacific Alliance and the European Union, then attracts economic trade partners. Thus in general for 2002-2017 the volume of export of goods and services increased by $2.9 billion, a year for 6.5% in relative expression. The average volume of an indicator was $65.89 billion. According to the table, every year the share of export of goods and services from GDP of the country is reduced. In 2002 she made about 30%, in 2017, only 11%. Indicators are in inverse relation. The GDP level, the less share of export in them is higher. Export of goods and services per capita in 2017 was equal in Argentina $16.10. According to Table 3, in 2017 the sum of the goods and services imported into Argentina was more than $87 billion. Over $63 billion. 72.8%. While import of services exceeded $23 billion, 27.2%, were the share of import of goods. Rate of gain of the general import in comparison with 2016 equals 18%. It is one of the highest rates of gain during 2007-2017.
Despite drastic protectionist measures and policy of import substitution, in 2008 there was a change of the general import to a positive side of plus 27.4%, which is followed by the subsequent recession in 2009
27.2% because of a difficult crisis situation in the world.
In 2010-2011 growth of volume of import, contrary to control of import of goods and services to the country and to his artificial control, is again noticeable from the state.
It is explained by a strong binding of the industry of Argentina to import. The problem lasts decades.
The share of industrial purchases makes 85% of the total amount of import. At the same time, the country can't refuse this article as domestic manufacturers aren't able to provide a part of goods independently and in the necessary quantity.
In the next year's growth in the opposite direction, except for 2013, because of constantly increasing import restrictions, is noticeable. This period lasts up to performance of obligations by Argentina in 2016, the EU countries imposed by the UTO in 2012 at the request of consultation and others because of severe import measures of Argentina. On January 14, 2016, the country reported about implementation of the recommendations connected with application of trade requirements, and about cancellation of the preliminary jury import declaration.
The rise in 2017 first of all is connected with simplification of a system of import regulation, reduction of non-automatic licenses and hobby of their validity period.
Till 2020 in Argentina there were 9 defaults, from which 3 came in the 21st century. In 2001, 2014 and 2020. After a default of 2001, Argentina managed to agree about restructuring from 93% of funds. So on July 30, 2014, the repayment period of debt obligations before a part of creditors expired. The non-payment sum on debts was $1.3 billion. The authorities of Argentina refused to confirm a default of 2014. The President of Argentina, Cristina Kirchner, disproved the announcement of a default, and the Minister of Economics of the country, Axel Kicillof, said that against Argentina the campaign designed to spread doubts, panic and fear which are caused by the word default has started media. In a default of 2020 the situation was other. The Minister of Economics of Argentina, Martin Guzman, suggested creditors to postpone payment of percent and a principal debt, $69 billion, for 3 years, and then to pay 94.6% of the main amount of debt and 48% of the additionally accrued percent. Investors didn't agree to it, and the government of Argentina didn't pay $500 million on the government bonds. Transport infrastructure of Argentina is rather developed. Extent of roads is km. Apart from private rural roads, from which came with a hard coating of an 1575 km high speed, many of which are the privatized paid roads. In recent years the extent of multi-band speedways doubled. Now they connect among themselves several large cities. Even more such roads are in a stage of construction. However, they still aren't enough for the organization of the normal movement now. 5 million cars registered in the country as of 2009. 240 on 1,000 people. Total length of network of the railroads is 31.4 thousand km. Tierra del Fuego is in the province the most southern railroad in the world. The train at the world's end. After several decades of decrease in transportations and the insufficient maintenance of infrastructure, in 1992 the railway company Ferrocarriles Argentinos N was privatized, the majority of long-distance passenger routes is closed, and thousands of kilometers of roads aren't included in the total length stated above. Aren't used now. Suburban rail transportation near Buenos Aires still is in great demand, however, partly because of ease of change by the subway. On a number of lines long-distance transportations are resumed now. Opened in 1913, the subway of Buenos Aires became the first subway in Latin America and in the Southern Hemisphere.
For today he already isn't the biggest in South America anymore, but on his 87.3 km of lines more than
2 million passengers a day are transported. In Argentina there are about km of internal waterways on which more freights than by the railroads are transported. Here the extensive network of channels enters, though Argentina has also enough natural waterways, among which the rivers of Rio de la Plata, Paraná, Uruguay, Rio Negro and Paraguay are the most significant. Aerolíneas Argentinas is the main airline of the country, providing both internal and international transport.
Australinese Areas is Aerolíneas Argentina subsidiary with the route network covering practically all territory of the country.
LAID, the airline managed by the Air Force Services wide network of internal routes. As of 2001, the population of the country was 36,260,130 people. For July 2010, card people. Nowadays, on this indicator, Argentina is the third in South America and the 33rd in the world. Average population density made 13.3 people per square kilometer. Growth of the population in 2010 was 0.87%, the birth rate was 18.7/1000 people, mortality minus 7.9/1000 people. The population aged up to 15 years makes 24.9%, 65 years minus 10.6% of the total number of the population are more senior. The urbanization in Argentina is the highest in Latin America after Uruguay.
The Indian population of Gran Chaco and La Plata and also the 100,000 population of Patagonia was almost completely exterminated in the course of the Spanish colonization in the 16th century and the subsequent occupations of the states of Pampas and Patagonia up to the end of the 19th century.
The Argentina nation was created in the 19th-20th centuries by numerous European immigrants. More than 85% of Argentinians belong to white race. The Indian population, Mapuche, Bicol, Ataba and others, makes 1.5% of the population, the others, generally Métis and also mulattoes. The national list of immigrants was very different. Natives of Spain prevailed, generally Basques and Galicians, and Italians. Descendants of the last make about 1/3 population of the country now. There are a lot of French, Germans, British, most of all Irish, Poles, Czechs, Croats, Ukrainians, Jews, Swisses, Danes, Dutches, Arabs. From 1.3 to 3 million people. Lithuanians, Greeks, Armenians. Only to the period from 1880 to 1950 to Argentina there arrived more than 5 million immigrants. Since the end of the 20th century, immigration from Europe practically stopped. An exception, Romania and Ukraine. Most of immigrants arrives in the country from South America. Bolivia, Paraguay, Peru, Chile. According to a census of 2010, 1,806,000 natives of other countries. 4.5% of the population of the country, including 81.5% from the countries of South America, and only 16.5% from the countries of Europe lived in Argentina. The considerable number of descendants of natives of pre-revolutionary Russia, generally Ukrainians, Germans of the Volga region, Belarusians, Russians, Jews, Lithuanians lives in Argentina. There is no organized Russian community per outcast in Argentina, despite a significant amount, by different estimates, from 100 to 250,000 people, generally in Buenos Aires, Mar del Plata, Cordoba in the province of Misiones. These are descendants of several waves of emigration from Russia and the USSR, including peasants from the western provinces, white guards, displaced persons, old believers. For the last 20 years to Argentina, several thousands of Russians, generally qualified specialists, moved the sources and specified 511 days. However, immigration from Russia to Argentina has no Massachusetts character. So, from 2004 to 2010, the status of a permanent residence was received by only 873 persons from Russia. Argentina absorbed in itself traditions of many countries and the people that left a mark on her culture, life and customs of Argentinians. State policy promoted fast assimilation of immigrants. Unlike the USA and Canada, in Argentina there are no areas with compact accommodation of separate nationalities, and when carrying out a population census there is no column, country of origin. On the law existing in the country, everyone been born in her territory, it is considered the Argentinian. Today in Argentina, dynamics of population is defined by natural increase. Its rates -0.91% in the mid-90s, the lowest in Latin America, also tend to decrease. In the country, long demographic crisis is observed.
It affects also dynamics of age structure of the population, which changes towards reduction of a share of young age.
Up to 15 years. And increases in seniors. More than 65 years. On life socioeconomic indexes, Argentina advances many countries of Latin America. On the standard of living, slightly exceeding Chile. Average life expectancy in the country makes 77 years. 73.5 at men, 80 at women. A share of HIV-positive people among the adult. From 15 to 49 years. Of the population, -0.5%. More than 87% of all population live in the cities of the country today, and more than 2/5 urban populations fall to the share of Buenos Aires. Buenos Aires, numbering about 12 million inhabitants, is included into number 10 of the largest agglomerations of the world. Other large cities are Cordoba, 1.4 million inhabitants. Rosario, 1.2 million. Mendoza, AP, 0.9 million. Tucumán, 0.8 million. The Christianity is the dominating religion in the country. As of 2017, Catholics make 77.1% of the population, Protestants -10.8%. Most of Protestants Pentecostals. About 3 million. Muslims about 500,000, Jews -180,000 people. About 10% of the population consider not religious themselves. The acting Pope Francis is Argentinian. The most popular sport is the soccer. Along with Brazil and France, the men's national team, only someone won the most important international 3.
World Cup, Cup of Confederations and Olympic gold medal.
Jorge of Nayiberi, 1875-1914. Which caused a stir as the fencer, the boxer and the pilot was the first popular sports idol. Massachusetts' distribution of sport happened in the first 3 decades of the 20th century on the basis of national passion to 3 types of activity. 2. Soccer, boxing and motorsport.
The FIFA World Cup of 1978 took place during military dictatorship which imposed 2 years the terrorist state earlier. It was entrusted to Argentina, which fought for this right since 1930 to hold the World Cup of 1978.
From October 6 to October 18, 2018 in Buenos Aires played the three Summer Youth Olympic Games. About 400 athletes aged from 15 up to 18 years from more than 200 countries participated in competitions. They awarded 241 sets of medals in 36 types of the sports program. The Association of Soccer of Argentina, AFA, was founded on February 21, 1893. It is the 8th in age football federation in the world. Diego Maradona, Lionel Messi. Argentina hosted the Basketball World Cup in 1950 and 1990. Holidays. On January 15, the Carnival in Argentina. On February 14, Street. Valentine's Day. Street. Valentine's Day. On March 24, National Day of Remembrance of the Truth and the Law. Dia Nacional de la Memoria por la Verdad y la Justicia. Day of Sad Memoirs of the Last Dictatorship in the country in 1976. On April 2, Day of Veterans and Fallen in the War with British for the Falkland Islands.
Since 2001 on April 2 it is noted in Argentina as Day of Veterans and Fallen in the War.
The end of March, April. Catholic Good Friday. Good Friday. Day-to-day holiday is unique for every year. Catholic Easter. Day-to-day holiday is unique for every year. On May 1, a work holiday. Labor Day. The third Saturday of May, Day of the Father. Congratulate all men having children. Lunch or dinner in the bosom of the family. Children give gifts. On May 25, anniversary of the First Revolution, 1810. And elections of the first independent government of Argentina. On June 20, Day of a Flag in Argentina. The Day of a Flag, Dia de la Bandera,
is celebrated in Argentina and Day of Death of the designer of a flag, Manuel Belgrano.
And is an official holiday. On July 9, the Independence Day of Argentina. On July 9, 1816, the Declaration of Independence of the Integrated Provinces of the Silver River, Argentina, was adopted. This date is considered date of birth of the Republic Argentina, and in the country the official holiday, the Independence Day, is celebrated. On August 17, Day of Remembrance of the General of Street Martin in Argentina. August 17 in Argentina is celebrated a public holiday, anniversary of memory of the hero of fight for independence of Argentina of the Spanish colonialists. 1810-1826. General José D. Street Martin. On September 11, the Teachers' Day in Argentina is very important event for all nation.
Actually, the Teachers' Day is celebrated by the whole country as a national holiday.
The second Monday of October, Day of Race in Argentina. Dia de la Raza. A holiday in honor of the radical and populating Argentina people. The third Sunday of October, the Mother's Day. It is noted in the bosom of the family. Congratulate all women who have children. Mothers, aunts, grandmothers, great-grandmothers, etc. Give gifts, an obligatory lunch in the bosom of the family. On December 8, Immaculate Conception of Blessed Virgin of Maria. One of great Marian feasts which are celebrated by the Roman Catholic Church. On December 24/25, Christmas. On a Gregorian calendar. Between Christmas and New Year in Argentina don't do a big difference. Two of these holidays celebrate almost equally. As a rule, Christmas in Argentina is a family holiday, with obligatory gifts. On December 31/1 January, New Year. In Argentina isn't a big holiday, it is celebrated houses in a circle of the family. It is very house holiday as, however, and many other holidays. Literacy level in Argentina is 97%. 3 from each 8 adults or more senior than 20 years have secondary education or above. Visit of schools is obligatory for all children from 5 to 17 years. The school system of Argentina consists of primary education lasting 6 or 7 years and secondary education lasting from 5 up to 6 years. Education in Argentina is free at all levels, except for the main part of post-university education. Though the level of literacy was near absolute since 1947, in the first half of the 20th century most of the Argentina youth had no access to education above than compulsory 7 years elementary education. With introduction of free education at average and university level, in the 1970th years, demand for them began to exceed often the budgetary opportunities. Respectively, state educational institutions often lack for means and reduce quality of training. It well affected blossoming of private education, though was expressed in inequality between those someone can afford it and other society, as private schools often have no programs of granting grants. About 1 of 4 school students and 1 of 6 students visit private educational institutions. About 11.4 million people were involved in process of formal education in 2006, including 1.5 million students of 85 universities of the country. 38 universities are state. The most significant universities: University of Buenos Aires, National University of Córdoba, National University of La Plata, National University of Rosario, National Technological University. The state universities faced significant reduction of financing in 1980th and 1990th that led to education decline in quality. Medical care is provided at the expense of a combination of the plans. Obras socials. The state insurance, the state hospitals and clinics, and also voluntary health insurance financed by employers and labor unions. The first action of the government for improvement of public health care can be considered introduction by the Spanish Vice King Juan José by the Virtus of Medical Tribunal for supervision of the practicing doctors in 1780. After declaration of independence, medical schools in the University of Buenos Aires, 1822, and the National University of Córdoba were founded, 1877.
Training of doctors and nurses at these and other schools made possible fast development of medical cooperatives, which during one parent's presidency developed into the Obras Sociales organization subsidized by the state.
For today their number exceeds 300, from which 200 treat labor unions. They provide medical care more than a half of the population of the country. The state and PAMI cover service of nearly all 5 million pensioners.
Expenses on healthcare reach nearly 10% of GDP of the country and grow according to growth of a share of Argentinians 65 years or more senior.
7% in 1970. The public and private expenditures are historically distributed approximately equally. Public funds are generally distributed through Obras Sociales and cover hospitalization in private and state clinics. Private means equally are divided into expenses on voluntary health insurance and overhead costs. In the country, more than card hospital beds, card doctors and 37000 stomatologists. Indicators are per capita comparable with the developed countries. Rather, free access to medical care historically is expressed in structures and trends of indicators of mortality, comparable with the developed countries. From 1953 to 2005, the share of death caused by cardiovascular diseases grew from 20% to 23%, tumors, from 14% to 20%, diseases of a respiratory system, from 7% to 14%, diseases of a gastrointestinal tract. Non-infectious character, from 7% to 11%, strokes, remained at the level of 7%, injuries -6%, infectious diseases -4%. The rest generally is charged to dementia. The share of infantile death fell from 19% in 1953 up to 3% in 2005.
Infantile mortality decreased from 70 on 1,000 newborns in 1948 to 12.5 in 2008.
The expected life expectancy at the birth grew from 60 to 76 years. Though these indicators favorably look against the background of averages world, all of them are some more lower than the level of the developed countries. In 2006, Argentina took the 4th place in Latin America on this indicator. Argentina gave to the world a great number of recognized doctors, scientists and inventors, including 3 Nobel Prize laureates. Argentinians are responsible for some breaks in medicine. Their research has led to significant shifts in treatment of wounds, heart diseases, some forms of cancer. Domingo Leota. English. For the first time in the world successfully I implanted artificial heart to the person in 1969. René Favaloro developed the equipment and for the first time in the world performed coronary shunting. Francisco de Pedro invented more reliable artificial stimulator of heart.
Bernardo Usse, the first Latin American Nobel Prize laureate in science, investigated a hypothesis role in regulation of level of glucose at animals.
Cesar Milstein conducted extensive researches of antibodies.
Rislelure opened the accumulation process by an energy organism by transformation of glucose to a glycogen and also connections which are fundamental in metabolism of carbohydrates.
Dr. Luis Agot developed the first safe method of blood transfusion. Enrique Finocchiaro invented a number of surgical instruments, for example, surgical scissors which bear his name. Finicetto's scissors, and a surgical divider of edges. Argentina develops own nuclear program, trying to avoid complete dependence from foreign technologies. In 1957 the research reactor, and in 1974 the first in Latin America commercial reactor was constructed. Nuclear objects with use of the Argentina technologies in VAP were constructed in Peru, Algeria, Australia, Egypt.
In 1983 the country was recognized the having possibility of production of the weapon uranium, which is the most important production phase of nuclear weapon.
However, from this point Argentina undertook to use nuclear energy only in the peace purposes.
As the member of Council of Managing Directors of IAEA, Argentina supports non-proliferation of nuclear weapon and supports ensuring global nuclear safety.
The Croatian emigrant Jan Vucetic is considered the founder of modern dactyloscopy. The inventor Raul Pateras Pacara, specializing in the engine, a car, and aircraft industry, in particular on creation of new models of helicopters.
The Argentinian of the Hungarian origin Laszlo Biro for the first time organized Massachusetts production of a modern ball pen.
Eduardo Torozzi invented the pendular internal combustion engine. Juan Maldasenga is one of leaders in development of the string theory.
Argentinians put to orbit a number of artificial Earth satellites, including Lucid-1,
1990, Victor-1, 1996, Pahunset-1, 2007. And also satellites of the SAC series of the Argentina Space Agency CONA. Pierre Augos, an observatory near the city of Malaga in the province Mendoza, is the most advanced observatory of space beams.
Argentina became the first country in Latin America which lifted the jet plane in air.
Pomai A 27 Pulqui. In honor of Argentina, the asteroid 469. Argentina opened in 1901 is called the industry of printing editions is highly developed and independent of the state. More than 200 newspapers are issued. The main national newspapers are issued in Buenos Aires. Centrist Clarín is the most popular edition in Latin America and the second in the Hispanic world. Other national newspapers: La Nation. Right Centrist is published since 1870. Pagina/12. Left. Ambito Financiera. Business Conservative. Ole. Sports. Chronica. Populist. Other big circulation issues: 2 newspapers in foreign languages. Argentinisches Tageblatt in German and Buenos Aires Herald in English. It is published since 1876. Treat the main regional editions. La Voz del Interior. Córdoba. Rio Negro. General Roca. Los Andes. Mendoza. La Capital. Rosario. El Tribuno. Salta. La Gaceta. Tucumán. Among magazines, the largest circulation publishes Noticias. The Argentina publishing houses, including Atlantida, UDB, EMAS and a great number of others, are considered, along with the Spanish and Mexican publishing houses in the Hispanic world. El Ateneo is the largest network of bookstores in Latin America. Argentina is a pioneer in the field of broadcasting.
At 21 o'clock on August 27, 1920, the Sociedad Radio Argentina radio station declared,
Now we give to your houses a live broadcast of the opera of Richard Wagner Parsifal from Coliseo Theatre in Buenos Aires. Only about 20 houses in the city had receivers for listening. The first ever radio station remained only in the country till 1922, when began broadcasting of Radio Cultura. By 1925 there were already 12 radio stations in Buenos Aires and 10 in other cities. In the 1930th years there came the golden age of radio in Argentina, with broadcasts of a variety show, news, soap operas and sports events. Now in Argentina 260 AM radio stations of range and 1150 FM ranges function. Music and youth programs dominate in AFM format. News, a debate and sports broadcasts make a basis of AM of broadcasting. In the country the amateur radio communication is widespread. The television industry of Argentina is extensive and various. Channels are widely broadcast to Latin America and are accepted worldwide. Many local programs are broadcast by television of other countries. Foreign producers also buy the rights for adaptation of programs to the markets. In Argentina 5 national TV channels function. All capitals of provinces and the large cities have at least one local station. Existence of channels of cable and satellite television in Argentina too, similarly North America. Many cable networks serve all Hispanic world from Argentina. Utilísima Satelital, TIC Sports, Fox Sports en Español. Together with the USA and Mexico. MTV Argentina, Cosmopolitan TV and also news network Todo Noticias. Since October 2014 in the territory of the country conducts on-air broadcasting in Spanish the Russian TV channel Art. Also far. Write comments. Read comments. Interesting people will tell interesting stories. All of good mood and good luck.